All right, so we've got 6 best bets coming your way here for today. Welcome to college football. And of course, we got the final week of the NFL and the preseason games, mixing a little Major League Baseball. You put it all together, and we've got ourselves not 1, not 2, but 6 best bets coming up with 3 of the very best at WagerTalk.com. There is football in the air, and there is no better place to start. I mean, nothing screams football like Dublin. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this, and who better to help us figure out what the hell's going on in Dublin than Mr. Bryan Power, BP, in the house, WagerTalk.com, 2:30 Eastern time, I believe, the kickoff here. Weather has been a concern all week, BP, and I think it's going to be a concern throughout the game. Is this a game you might have circled for us here today?
Yeah, I actually circled it long ago, Joe. I've had a free play on my page for, it seems like weeks now on this game. But let's start with some trends. I know Ralph Michaels is going to be following me in honor of him. Let's talk some trends. This isn't your first rodeo, Joe. It's not your first college football season. No secret, taking points with service academies tends to be a good idea, right? To that point, since 2005, when Army, Navy, or Air Force are a dog of 14 or more, they're a collective 42, 22, and 2 against the number. Pretty good, right? Looking at Navy specifically, they're 14 and 6 against the number, getting points any range the last 3 seasons, and 10 and 2 ATS the last 12 times. They've been a double-digit dog of 3 touchdowns or less, which is the case here. Now, sure enough, these teams, of course, regularly play, Joe, and they played last year. Navy covers as a 17-point dog. That game was played in Baltimore, the other side of the Atlantic there. Final score 35-32. I realized Navy was down big at the half, 35-13, in fact. But, they rallied, played a strong second half. I don't see them falling into that kind of hole here. You talked about the weather. I've seen conflicting reports like how long the rain could go on. But what we do know is the total here is low. And a low-scoring game would certainly seem to favor the dog, especially one getting this many points. I know Notre Dame has had plenty of time all summer to prepare for the triple option. But remember, we got a new staff here in Annapolis. Brian Newberry, promoted from defensive coordinator to head coach. But I think the key is going to be Grant Chestnut, the new OC, who comes over from Kennesaw State. They ran a triple option, but with some wrinkles. There's been some rumblings that Navy may look to pass a little bit more. So Notre Dame may be on their heels a little bit defensively in this one. Now, looking at Notre Dame's offense, the big talk is Sam Hartman coming over from Wake Forest, obviously. But it's his first game with the new team. They've got a new play caller in South Bend. So are they going to be clicking on all cylinders right out of the gates? Maybe not. And then you look at these defenses. Navy may be lacking in talent compared to the Notre Dame side, Joe. But they do have more experience. And they got better as last year went along. Over the final 5 games, they held 4 opponents to 20 points or less. And then the one, exception to that rule was Notre Dame, but they shut Notre Dame out in the second half last year. So I think Navy stays within the number. I would say shop around for 21s. I don't know if one of those is going to pop up between now and kickoff. There have been a few in the last 24 hours, but they keep getting picked off. So immediately as soon as someone sees that, they're grabbing it. But Navy, I think they stay within the number here, as service academies tend to do.
All right, taking the points there. Service academies have often throughout the years been very good bets as big dogs away from home. So we'll see if that continues here. I do want to let you guys know as well, we're going to talk a little Giants and Jets coming up here, but BP's got his Power 5 available for you guys to view. He covers all the games here in college football week 0. You guys can check that video out, and all you have to do is hit the subscribe and the like button here, and we've got plenty more content when it comes to college football and obviously the NFL and everything in between here. If you are new to Wager Talk, so go ahead, smash that like button, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and get ready to cash a few tickets here in week 0. Let's talk about this Giants and Jets game, a game in which, let's consider it here, BP, right? It's probably not going to be the best football we're going to see, but as a lifelong Jet fan, I can tell you this. I get to see finally, at least if not for one series, our new toy there in Aaron Rodgers get behind center. So if for no other reason, I'm watching the game for that. But talk to me about an angle you're thinking about betting in this one.
Yeah, you probably haven't been this excited since what, Ken O'Brien in 1987 or something, Joe? Who knows? But Aaron Rodgers is going to see the field a little bit. It's going to be his first time on the field in the preseason since 2018. Obviously, having spent his entire career with one team, Green Bay knew what they had with Aaron Rodgers, I think, for most of his tenure there, right? And here's the thing, though. This number, to me, is an overreaction to the fact that Rodgers is going to see the field. It was bet up from 4.5 to 6. Looking at the WagerTalk.com odds screen. And my view is, even if Rodgers does lead a scoring drive, he's not going to be out there too long. There are reports that there's some issues along the offensive line there, and Robert Saleh does not dare risk an injury here. I mean, you talk about DEFCON 5, if that were to happen. So my view is, if Rodgers, let's say he leads a scoring drive on his first drive, I think that's it for him. I think they just want him to do something nice for the fans, wave, get out of there. They're injury-free. And remember, Joe, the Jets played the Hall of Fame game, right? So this is their 4th preseason game. The coaching staff knows what they have here. There's not a lot of position battles going on. So to me, this is too big of a number to lay in the final preseason game. The Giants, oh, by the way, you talk about their starting quarterback. Daniel Jones looked great last week. They were up 21-3 over Carolina at the half. They were winning most of the time in week 1. Against the Lions until they gave up a late touchdown. Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito aren't exactly the finest quarterbacks of our generation, but they've played admirably in the preseason. And I think the Giants can do enough here to stay within a generous number. Remember, this is an annual rivalry, as you know, being a Jets fan, Joe. These teams play every year in the preseason. The Giants don't want to get embarrassed here. I have a lot of respect for the job Brian Daboll did last season, getting a team with kind of this little talent to the playoffs. They had some luck along the way, but it was good coaching as well. I would take the 6 with Big Blue. G-Men are your best bet here on the show.
All right, just for the record, I haven't been this excited since this point last year, and then I always watch the Jets play a game, and I'm like, nope, it's over. Where's the draft? I'm looking forward to the draft. So as a Jet fan, we all know what is coming there. But Bryan Power, again, guys, make sure you check out his Power 5 video here on YouTube, on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Guys, great information covering all the Week 0 games here, some trends, and of course, some angles, and one of his favorite plays of the day. And don't forget, over at WagerTalk.com, the man is on a absolute roll, 15-7-1 overall in the last 9 days. He has been at the top of the game in college football and football in general since last year, so definitely worth checking him out over at WagerTalk.com. All right, I'm done talking to you, BP. I got nothing else to say. You've annoyed me enough, so you're out of here. Goodbye. We got more important things to do. Great seeing you.
This was going to be the first time that we didn't have any choice words.
Keep it moving. Get them off the screen.
I'll
We've got more important things. Yeah, 4. We got 4 more games coming up here with best bets. We're going to drop with you, Ralph Michaels, and of course, Steve Merril. We'll hit cleanup here today. He's got 2 best bets in Week 0. He's going to lay out for you, but let's bring in the man, the myth, Mr. Ralph Michaels, the pen, no doubt. He has that pen ready to roll here in a Week 0. And Ralph, let us start another game. It hasn't been talked about all that much, but I do find a couple of fascinating angles between with Hawaii and the tragedies that we have seen occur there over the last week. And now this team is flying to Vandy to take on a team that beat them to a pulp a year ago. Couple of different ways to look at this game. A big underdog is this Hawaii team. What do you think of this matchup coming up?
Well, Joe, it's as important to know why you like a game as why you don't like it. So I'm going to point out points why I like the team and why it didn't make my card. So I actually passed Week 0. Just because there's 7 college football games does not mean I'm going to force a play for my clients. If these 7 games were on a full 50-game card, none of them would make my card. So none of them made my card for Week 1. But Vanderbilt's at the top of the list. I like what they've done. You know, I think now in the 3rd year of Lee's system, you have a returning quarterback. You have skilled players back on the receivers. Your top 3 receivers are back. Yes, you lose your top running back, but on the defensive side, you also return 8 starters, including 3 of your top 4 tacklers. Now, part of the reason it didn't make my card was when you have a team that has been a poor home favorite and now you're laying 17, does that concern you? A positive for Vanderbilt is they only have Alabama A&M on deck, so they don't have to hold anything back. They can play their guys. This is a rebuilding year. Now, they are redoing their stadium, but it really doesn't matter with what they draw. I think they're from 40,000 down to 25,000 with the renews. Hawaii actually flew out 4 days ago, Joe, because it's been so hot in Vanderbilt, 97 degrees in the day today with humidity. And while Hawaii has great weather, they don't have that humidity. So they actually flew out a few days early to get his players acclimated. Now, I will say this about Hawaii. Their defense was shredded last year. Their offense was pitiful to start the year. But let's remember this. Timmy Chang was a late hire. When they had their old coach, everybody left. They only had 5 returning starters on offense, 2 on defense. So there's very good reasons why that team got shelled. Chang went to a spread offense, a pass-heavy spread offense midseason. They actually ended up covering 6 of those 7 games. So while I think Vanderbilt has the ability to beat this team, size, we talk about size often. And when we look at FCS and FBS teams, we sometimes say, oh, look, this offensive line averages 310. This D-line averages 260. But in this case, Hawaii has 1 player taller than 6'5" and 11 players shorter than 6 foot. A lot of those receivers and DBs. Vanderbilt, 12 players 6'5" or higher, and only 6 players below 6 feet. The wide receiver DB combos, a huge edge for the matchups for Vanderbilt. So while I think Hawaii is going to be much improved, I have them higher than most people. Their schedule is very difficult. And again, when you have a team like Vanderbilt that 6 wins are your goal, you don't look past Hawaii. You don't look past Alabama A&M. You need every possible win to go to a potential bowl. So more than the minus 17 for the full game, I like Vandy minus 10 in the first half in case they do empty their bench in the second half. So my official opinion is Vandy minus 10 first half. For the full game, I would still lean Vandy minus 17.
All right, well, it's good stuff there, Ralph. And, week 0 is here. You made a great point about not, don't force anything here in a week 0. But I would encourage you, Ralph has a great breakdown of the upcoming Navy game and Notre Dame that you can check out in the opening episode here of the College Football Kickoff Show, which is available right now on the YouTube channel there, guys. Make sure you check it out. Hit that subscribe and like button, guys. Some great information there from Adam Trigger, Rob Vino, Ralph Michaels. Games broken down there. Check them out. See if it helps you guys make a good decision. And we're going to head to the chat room, Ralph, because we do have a question, and it's a pretty good one as well, talking about USC and some big spreads here, right? With bookmakers expecting a whole lot from a team like USC here. Caleb Williams, obviously, with the Heisman, with the push that's going to come from there, playing San Jose State. What do you do here when you have these monster spreads in games, certainly early on in the season here? Do you just try to avoid teams like USC at all costs?
I'm throwing something in here, and I'm putting our tech guys on notice because I don't know if they can get this up, Joe. But on WagerTalk
in there,
today,
Ralph. How's that?
Look how quick this is.
Yeah.
On WagerTalk today, amazing back there or what? Eric, you are an animal. Thank you. Okay, let me say this. Since 2018, college football game 1 favorites have hit 54.3%. College football away favorites have hit 44.8%. Does it make sense? Absolutely. You're the better team at home, week 1 excited. So home favorites have done well in game 1. But then I broke down home favorites of minus 10, minus 17, minus 24, and minus 30 with the blue heading. Take a look. in game one of college football season, double-digit favorites, 58.4%. Favorites of 17 or higher, 56.2. 24 points or higher, 55.3. And favorites of 30 points or higher have a 55.4%. And then below where you see that big blue box, when you have an FBS team playing an FBS team, like USC is playing San Jose State, 30-point favorites and higher have gone 15-7, 68.2%. So it shows if you're playing an FCS foe, maybe you get to your 2s and 3s much earlier. You empty your bench. But when you're playing an FBS foe, perhaps you're more excited. You're not looking past this team. You know it means more in the rankings, blowing out a Mountain West team. So I'm not going to base a play on this, but I do have this chart and the favorites chart up on my Twitter at CalSportsLV. But I do like USC. This is another situation, Joe. As long as you can get under 21 in the first half, I think USC's defense is approved. Now, I'm not going to go against Chevy C. I mean, he's a great quarterback as far as the Mountain West concerned. I think he can get some late garbage touchdowns against USC's number 2s. But I would, if I'm going to play this game, I would lean USC minus the points in the first half.
Yeah, 18 and a half is what I got it at there, Ralph. And I definitely think the Caleb Williams Heisman push will begin as long as he's playing in this game. So it'll be an interesting one here today. But let us not forget here, guys, there are some final preseason games in the NFL going to take shape. And Ralph, nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, has dominated the preseason in the NFL like you, my friend, over the years. Your record, it speaks for itself here. It's what, 77.6% here on 4% of I mean, you have been absolutely crushing the preseason here over time. It's been absolutely amazing. And you've got one today that you're looking at. So why don't you go ahead, break it down for us. Tell us which one of these preseason games do you like on the card?
I will say I lost one of those 4% last night, so that record will go down a touch by 1% or 2. So that is what it is. You know, this is a situation with Baltimore and Tampa Bay. You know, Baltimore, every story you heard about Baltimore was the 23-24 game win streak, and that's gone. But they still have an excellent quarterback rotation. We're not going to see Lamar Jackson today. Not sure if we're going to see Tyler Huntley. But you still have Anthony Brown, who made a start here last year, second year of the system. Josh Johnson has 9 career starts, made 1 career start last time he was here. Josh Johnson, 10-12 last week for 145 yards. But I am not worried about Baltimore scoring. You know, both games went over the total this year against both Philadelphia and Washington. You look at Tampa Bay. They have pressed the hell out of me this year. Now, Bowles didn't care about the preseason last year at all. He went 0-3 and got crushed. Why? He had Tom Brady. The preseason meant absolutely nothing to him. He wasn't going to play anybody. He knew what he had in practice. But this year they had a number 1 battle between Baker Mayfield and Trask. Mayfield now won that battle. So, you know, he put up 332 yards against Pittsburgh, a very good preseason team. Put up 331 yards against the Jets, another very good preseason team. And now he said this. He said, Baker and Trask have been splitting reps with the ones. I now know who my number 1 quarterback is, and I want them to play together in this game. His starters, including Baker Mayfield, are going to play the whole first half. And just as important, some coaches in the second half play a mismatch of players wanting to know who's going to make the 53s. He said this. I know who my starter is. I know who my number 2 is. I want to see my number 2 get reps with the number 2s in the second half. So when you have 1s playing the first half and 2s with Trask, the guy who challenged for the number 1 job, playing with his number 2s, that's a powerful situation. So it's a very low total, a very fair total. Tampa Bay deserves to be favored despite Baltimore being 24-1 their last 25 preseason games. So can Tampa Bay get to 20? Yes. Can Baltimore get to 17? Yes. It's an over for me. And, Joe, I do have one note about your Jets. And Brian may have not read this because I just read this earlier. Saleh said this. He expects the starters to get 2 series. As he said, he wants them to play a series, come off, get the adjustments, and have that feeling of walking back out on the second.
Out of here, I'm
So
about to go.
we may see Rodgers for 2 series, but we'll see what happens in that game.
Well, let's. Something tells me it wasn't Robert Saleh trying to convince him to get out there and play. I think Aaron Rodgers might have had a little bit of a say in that, wanting to be able to get out there and get his feet wet. But should be a great day here, Ralph, as we wrap up, get ready to wrap up, of course, the NFL preseason. As we head to the chat, and I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't done so, if you're catching this on the replay, drop us any questions you have about the upcoming games, schedules, whether it be college football or the NFL. Ralph, Bryan Power, myself, will all be, keeping tabs there on the comment section there and giving as much information and answer as many questions as we can. So don't be afraid. Drop it in the comment section. Let us know if you have any questions about the week 0 games or maybe week 1 games in college football coming up. We will certainly get to them. And for those of you joining us live here, let's head to the questions, Ralph, about the Steelers, who looked offensively pretty good. I believe Pickett, 5 offensive possessions, series, 5 touchdowns. He's been nothing short of amazing against maybe some of the second and third teamers, but he still has looked the part here. What do you think? Are you looking to wager Steeler games like you did last year, or what do you think about this year? Is it cautious? Should we be cautious about backing the Steelers from what we've seen in this NFL preseason thus far?
I was pulling my notes, Joe, and Kenny Pickett went 6 of 7 preseason game 1. He went 3 of 4 preseason game 2. But I'll tell you what, guys, do not take one iota of what you saw in the preseason carried over. Mike Tomlin wants his players to have success. I did a preseason guide, so let me share these numbers with you. Last year in the preseason, Trubisky 70%, Pickett 80%, Rudolph 66%. 2 years ago in the preseason, Haskins 64%, Rudolph 79%, Roethlisberger 80%, Dobbs 65%. Tomlin wants his quarterbacks to have success in the preseason. He calls dink and dunk offenses where players can get 3-4 yard passes, hopefully break some yardage. Now, that works in the preseason because defensive coordinators don't make those red zone adjustments. They don't blitz when you get down there. They don't change up their defenses. So in the regular season, in that type of offense, you may be able to drive between the 20s, and you often get stalled in the red zone. In the preseason, that always is success for Tomlin. And that's exactly why Tomlin is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's now 11-1 in preseason the last 3 years. So the offense for Pittsburgh is predicated to show preseason success. That does not carry over to the regular season. Not that Pickett's not going to be improved, but don't base your bet on that.
I don't know why we continue to fade or think the end is near for guys like Tomlin and Belichick, but I guess time will tell here, Ralph, but I am not ready to stick a fork in either of those guys just yet. Ralph Michaels, make sure you guys visit him over at WagerTalk.com. And, of course, make sure you check out his breakdown of the Notre Dame Navy game coming up on the College Football Kickoff Show. You can find that on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Best way to do it, guys, and never miss anything is just by simply hitting that subscribe button and hitting the like button. We got way more content coming your way, including 2 more best bets coming up here in week 0 from the man who's got, I believe, his $2 best bet available right now at Wager Talk in college football. The R1L Merril in the house, ready to roll here on a week 0. Steve, pleasure to see you here, my man. Not a ton of games here today, but you did manage to find 2, and you got one up for $2 here that you liked a lot, and I think you have liked that one a lot. So start us off with one of these games coming up here today. Which one do you want to look at first?
Yeah, we're going to look at two of the games here. But, yeah, as you mentioned, there's one game I like a lot. As you know, Joe, I normally don't acknowledge week 0. I don't believe in week 0. I wait till week 1. But the last 2 years, I have not had a best bet on week 0 either Saturday. But this year is different. There's a game that jumped out to me. And just to show it to everybody, I made it for $2. Special price. If you missed it on Tuesday, it is still available until kickoff this evening. Right now on my page, $2 best bet for week 0 college football. First one I've had in over 3 years, and it goes tonight. And there's a bonus promo code in there as well, which allows you to get the rest of the season for just $3 a day. So the $2 is great, but how about the rest of the college football season for just $3 a day? That promo code included with the best bet right now at WagerTalk.com. Let's start off with a game tonight that's on ESPN National TV. UMass. Of course, UMass is on ESPN National TV against New Mexico State. What else are you going to show in week 0? Kind of tells you what we're dealing with in week 0, that UMass is the ESPN National TV game, and it's not going to matter. This team has gone 3 and 37 the last 4 seasons. They've gone 1 and 11 in 3 of those seasons when they've played a full year. Their only win last year came against Stony Brook from my CAA FCS. And the year before that, their only win came barely against UConn, who's been just as bad in recent years. Should be better, by the way, this season. UMass, though, I do not think is going to be any better. And this is a revenge spot for UMass. But every game's a revenge spot for UMass because they lose every game. And New Mexico State went in here last year and won this game. And I don't think anything changes here, to be honest. I mean, you could say, oh, they're going to overlook them, right? Because they won last year in UMass. They won't take them serious. But that's not how it works. They've got Western Illinois on deck at home next week, so there's no look ahead here. And that game last year, they go into UMass as a 1-point road favorite, and they win the game outright by 10 points. And now they're laying just 7 points at home. I don't think anything has changed. I don't think UMass is that much better. They only returned 5 defensive starters. It's not like they're a veteran team. New Mexico State was a better team last year. They're the better team this year, and it's week 1, which means they don't overlook an inferior foe.
Yeah, I can't wait until the second half comes and UMass is in 100-degree weather there. Should be an awful lot of fun watching how well they do there. The old Northeast going down and sucking wind there in New Mexico should be a lot of fun here. But you do have another game, Steve, as well that you're looking at. This one might be a little bit more interesting when it's all said and done. Certainly, it would think the market thinks it's going to be. Just look at the line here. It's virtually a pick-em here. What are you thinking about UTEP taking on Jacksonville State University coming up?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting game to talk about. It's on 5:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Once again, got to get Jacksonville State on national TV in their FBS debut. But this is a team that's moving up from the FCS, the 1AA level, Jacksonville State. They've been successful down there. And I do think they'll have a chance to compete in this game. And obviously the point spread says that it's also a home game for them, so it'll be a raucous environment. And we have seen some reverse line movement on this game, though. Jacksonville State opened as a slight favorite, 1.5 earlier this summer. UTEP then went to -1 this week. Now it's -2 across the board. So the money has been coming in on UTEP. Instead of playing the side, though, what I would recommend doing if you like UTEP is wait just a little bit. Let's see how the game plays out, because a lot of times the true Division 1A teams do have a real edge on the line of scrimmage. I'm not sure Jacksonville State can match UTEP on the line of scrimmage. And if that's the case, normally the FCS teams, I know Jacksonville State's moving up, but I still consider them kind of a FCS team. They normally wear down in the second half, especially the fourth quarter. So I think some in-game opportunities will present themselves if you like UTEP in this one, if they have an edge on the line of scrimmage. Now, if you watch the first quarter or so and you realize they don't, then, you just don't make a bet. So instead of playing this pregame, I think it's a good in-game opportunity, maybe if UTEP looks like they're dominating the line of scrimmage. But what I do like pregame for the viewers of this show is the over. And we have seen some sharp money on the over. It opened 52.5, up to 54 now across the board. That move occurred earlier this week. When an over-under moves on Monday or Tuesday, it's sharp money. And I agree with that move. Once again, I think Jacksonville State's going to struggle in the defensive line of scrimmage. So UTEP should get some points here. But I'm not so sure UTEP can slow Jacksonville State down. Jacksonville State has a spread offense, and I think they're going to be successful even in their debut this night against a UTEP team that's been very mediocre over the years. So I look for some points. I look for both offenses to have the edge. So if you're playing it pregame, I think over 54 is the play. And then watch it during the game and see if UTEP is dominating the line of scrimmage. Maybe sneak in with a in-game play on UTEP at that point.
Yeah, Rich Rod going to have a little bit of an up-tempo situation coming up in that game. Points are coming. It might be one of the more entertaining games on the schedule, the week 0 schedule here. And it's interesting, and Vegas DJ's got a question for us there regarding companies' new travel schedules for some teams. trying to get different conferences now. I guess it's all going to change here, Steve. We got the mega conferences coming. We've got teams playing on opposite sides of the country now, and not just in football, but in all sports. It's going to make it real interesting here coming up. What do you think about some of the maybe we ought to start looking and handicapping some of these angles a little bit differently moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, football, of course, is unique because they only travel once a week. So if it's a longer trip, they can always leave a little bit earlier. Basketball, I think college basketball will become interesting for that reason because teams often play, on a Thursday and a Saturday, 2 and 3 days in different cities. Oh, I will say the longer trips actually might be more comfortable because most of these conferences over the years in the 90s and the 2000s were all within 3 or 4 hours, which means there was a bus trip. Now it's a plane ride, and these guys travel usually on private planes. They rent out the entire jet because it's 70, 80 people. So if anything, the longer trips might be more comfortable than a 4-hour bus ride. So I'm not going to factor it in too much, especially for college football. But I do think you can make a case, Joe, with the unfamiliar settings, right? The stadium, the locker room, maybe all of that gives the home team. And like I said, Jacksonville State at home against UTEP. That's probably worth a little bit extra for Jacksonville State. Their fans are going to be hyped up to play an FBS team. And it's going to be a weird trip for UTEP, not necessarily the travel, but really once you get there, probably the lodging, the pregame, the locker room. So I think maybe home field could be worth a little bit more for that reason.
Be interesting to see recruiting too, right? As they sit in the living rooms and try to convince families and kids to come all the way across the country there and never have a chance to see the kid play. So I think a lot is still to be learned with all of that, including some of the new rules taking place here, like the clock not stopping, which is going to be interesting. We'll see if that affects the scores as these games roll on. But we do have we'll get one football question in here, NFL style for you there, Steve, regarding the Carolina Panthers getting points here in week 1. Vegas, Gianni wants to know exactly what you might think of that. And let's face it has not been an impressive preseason thus far for the number 1 pick here. What are you thinking?
Well, Ralph had a good point earlier. He said we can't read much into the preseason. However, and he was talking about success, right? He was talking about the Steelers looking great every preseason. And then I think what we can sometimes read in, though, is when starting units are struggling, because to be honest, that's all that matters, right? It doesn't matter if the Panthers are terrible in the preseason, their second and third string doesn't look good, but the starting offense hasn't necessarily looked good either. And that is a concern. Now, the NFL's different now with the 3 preseason games. They've got extended time off. They've got a couple of weeks basically to work on things. But that is something I pay attention to. I want to see teams that, at least when the starters out there have looked crisp, and that is a concern with Carolina. And that is something I think you need to pay attention to. So right now it's hard to say that's a buy on offense, so maybe a total to the under is worth a look, unless they've been holding back. But the fact they have some youngsters there on offense and they're struggling is a concern.
Steve Merril, $2 best bet is available, guys, in college football. Week 0 off and running. If you head over to his page right now at WagerTalk.com. Pick it up. If you're new here to Wager Talk, we certainly appreciate the time, but no better way to partner up with Steve than hop on board for $2 here and get that best bet. He is not a big week 0 guy, so the fact that he's got one available and that he actually he chose it means he likes it a lot. So for $2, head over to WagerTalk.com and get it done. And there you have it, right? 6 best bets here across the board coming up today. College football, not to mention, of course, NFL. And if, again, you're new to Wager Talk, we appreciate the time. Those of you that hang out in the chat room certainly appreciate it as well. Don't forget, drop your comments below. Any questions about any of the upcoming games, drop them below. We're always checking the comment section. We're always answering those questions that you may have. And if it's football content you like, well, it's football content we have. Just go ahead, hit on that next video coming up here. NFL, college football, we are off and running, and we've got plenty of videos and content coming your way here on Wager Talk TV. Best of luck. We'll talk to you again soon.